Day 5. Well, I guess welcome to day 5 of Web3 with Whitney, and welcome back if you saw any of the live streams I did on day 1, 2, 3, or 4. This is a daily live stream project that I started 5 days ago, and it's part of my commitment to holding myself accountable for learning Web3, to having conversations about Web3. And I think it's really important that I do this every single day so that I can challenge myself to talk about it, to better understand it, to answer questions, to learn from people. And it's just been a really exciting thing. So thanks for being here. If you're watching the recording, I've been having an issue that I haven't figured out quite yet where the videos will stop sometimes abruptly, like 5 or 10 minutes into the live streams. They'll go into multiple parts depending on what platform you're on. So I'm trying to figure all that out. The best place to watch right now is on YouTube, and I have a link to the YouTube channel. But you can also go to my website, which is actually something I wanted to bring up today in case you haven't yet. It's whitneylauritsen.com/web3. And this is a little page that I made just to make it easy for you to get all the information. I'm trying to get into a regular rhythm, but so far I've been going live around 2:30 or 3 p.m. Pacific time every day of the week, including weekdays like today is Saturday. And I'm on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. I'm about to go live on TikTok in a moment. And there's a whole playlist with all the past videos you can watch. And I'm also creating a podcast. So right now, you can listen to day 1 and 2. Later today, I'm going to upload day 4. I'm going to skip over day 3 because I ran into so many technical challenges. So I might put it up there, but there's only like 12 minutes of audio and it's just not that good. So part of the learning process. And I also am working on my Discord community. If you know about Discord, if you don't, I think I talked about it in episode 2. You can learn more about Discord. It's just a cool place to be able to come together and chat live in between my live videos, or if you can't make my live videos and you want to interact with me and other people. And that right now is exclusive to Wellcoin holders. If you haven't heard me talk about Wellcoin yet, that is on this platform called Rally for as little as 12 cents, 13 cents today. The price fluctuates a lot based on cryptocurrency prices and all of this. But you could buy just one of these coins for 13 cents and you'll get access to the Discord. I'll talk more about this, but that's just kind of the behind the scenes. And one of the big reasons that I'm learning Web3. So I'm going to launch my my TikTok stream now so that I can be over there. There's actually usually more people watch on TikTok than they do on the other platforms. I think just because TikTok's algorithm. But before I get into that, I just want to make sure that you know what Web3 is. I am very committed, if you haven't heard me say this before, to really taking a down-to-earth approach to Web3. And if you don't even know what Web3 means, here's a semi-simple, more like a short way of describing it, a definition. It's a decentralized version of the internet that runs on a blockchain. So you may be hearing these keywords decentralized, you may be hearing blockchain, and you associate that with crypto. Every day on these videos, I tend to touch upon different subjects. Yesterday, I talked about NFTs. Today, I'm going to focus on the metaverse. And the days prior, I was dropping in things like crypto. And some of these videos are going to like have a very specific flow to them, maybe an outline. But every single day is also open to tangents and live questions from people. In fact, I need to open up my little comment window over here. Behind the scenes, in case you're curious, I am broadcasting this on, how do I open up my comments? Oh no, I hit the wrong button. Okay, hold on. Bear with me. I'm broadcasting, as I said before, on all these different platforms. And I think that's part of the reason the technical issues are happening. So I have to open up one window and then I'm going to start this broadcast over on TikTok. So it's a lot to manage in one place. But if you have any questions, thoughts, things that you want to share that you know, anything is welcome in the comments. I will not read any rude things, of course, but I will read questions, anything that feels like it's contributing to this conversation. The reason I'm going live is because there's great accountability in live. So for me, knowing that I'm going live every day really inspires me to learn and talk about Web3, because before I started this live series, I was struggling to hold myself accountable. And every day I'd be like, oh, I should really go read some more articles, but I would procrastinate it. Now I can't because I'm here live. And hi to KJ, who's watching live on YouTube right now. Thank you so much for being here. And what else was I going to say? Oh, and the whole other point of doing live videos is to have a conversation. So I encourage you to come join me live. As I mentioned, I'm trying to do it on a consistent time of the day. But if you're ever curious, you're like, hey, when are you doing your next live? Send me a message on whatever platform you're viewing this on, or send me an email or a text if you know me personally. And I'll let you know what my schedule is for that day, so you can come join in and be part of the convo. And then hopefully once the Discord gets up and rolling, that'll be cool too. All right, I'm going to go live on TikTok, and then I'll jump into today's conversation. I'll talk more about the metaverse, but feel free to chime in about anything, anytime. And heads up, if the signal drops on whatever platform you're working on, I wish there was more I could do. I've been trying to optimize every day. So you can certainly let me know if there's a big issue. On day 3, my audio completely dropped out, and I didn't know until 30 minutes into the live stream. So that was fun, but I learned, and now I'm trying to keep an eye on that. So fingers crossed it goes smoothly, and I'm going to go live on TikTok right now. And actually, what's interesting with TikTok, for those of you that don't use it or don't watch live videos there, is like people just kind of randomly pop in. You may see a moment where I start to put a lot of my attention on TikTok. Usually, like a few minutes in, there'll be like this rush of people. There'll be hundreds of people watching. And so I feel like I got to capture their attention. And then like it'll die down and there'll be like a couple people watching. It's so interesting just going live. If you're not a creator or somebody that goes live, it's wild. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my notes on the metaverse and talk a bit about that. These are just kind of random notes that I've been taking over time. If you're brand new to the series, I keep a document in Notion, and actually I'm going to share my screen so that you can follow along with me. So I have a whole Web3 document that I've been building out over time. And I just created all these different categories here. If you don't use Notion, it is so great. It's a little bit of a learning curve, but I just love the organization of it. It's so great for things like that. I'm also a big user of Google Docs and the Notes apps on my iPhone and my Mac, but those feel disorganized. For things like this that have all these different subtopics and categories, Notion is a game changer. And I encourage you to use it too, because along your journey of learning, if you learn by being able to go back and read notes, kind of like being in school, Notion is my _1 recommendation. So this is my metaverse file where I've just been plopping in quotes from articles and links. If you ever want any of these links, I'll put them in the recording of the video and the description of each of them, except for, I guess, Twitter. I can't really do that, but on YouTube, on Facebook, and my phone just is having some issues, but who knows? Anyways, technical issues galore today, so hopefully the live is doing okay. And hi to my friends over on TikTok that are watching. I'm multitasking, and one thing I've been struggling with on TikTok is like being able to see. There's so much going on TikTok. There's things like flashing on the screen. It's really overwhelming. So if I miss anything, I apologize. All right, so talking about the metaverse, if you're watching on TikTok, one downside is that you can't see my screen, but I'm sharing my screen over on my Facebook, YouTube Live, LinkedIn Live, Twitter. So if you prefer to see my screen, go find my page, which is at Whitlaw. It's in the same as TikTok, and you can see and actually follow along in real time and see the recordings. So the metaverse is a term that I think a lot of people are starting to hear for the first time. And it's like a big facet of Web3. I think Facebook changing their name to Meta was a big wake-up call for a lot of us. It was a signal that there was a shift happening, but also confusing. I think a lot of people are intimidated by this term of the metaverse. They either don't know what it means, they're scared of it. I know a lot of friends of mine that are parents are nervous about it and what it means for the future of kids. Like, They're afraid that we're going to end up in this whole world where everyone's online and never seeing each other in person. People are afraid that no one's going to leave their desk. And I think that could be possible. One of my favorite resources, which is also kind of a cliche when talking about the metaverse, is called Ready Player One. It's a phenomenal book. I've read the book. Actually, I listened to the audio book version, which is about 14 hours long. It was so great. I listened to it on a recent road trip and it flew by. I was so engrossed in the story. And then I've watched the movie 1.5 times. I watched it once when it first came out, which was back in like 2018 or 19. And then I tried watching it again after I read the book. And I'm telling you, like, if you haven't yet, read that book. And that book really paints a picture about what the metaverse could be, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it will be. And what's interesting about the Ready Player One version of the metaverse is it kind of shows the pros and cons. Like the cons may be these fears that people have around everybody's world is based online. So if the quick version of the story is it's about this guy and his friends and his experience at school. And he is escaping the reality of what's going on in the world, which is like inequality, and a lot of people are really poor, and people are living in bad housing situations, and the earth is kind of crumbling. So a lot of people are using the metaverse, which, gosh, I forget what they call it in that book. There's a different term for the metaverse in Ready Player One, but they go into this world and they put on the glasses, very much like the Oculus glasses that you might have seen in other similar technology. And they go into this whole land where they can escape, but they can also interact with each other. And this is where the pros of the potential metaverse come in, is that similar to Ready Player One, we could go into this whole world and interact with each other in really cool ways. In fact, I mentioned earlier how the reason I'm committed to doing live videos about Web3 is because I really want to have a conversation. I don't want to just be talking to you all the time. I want to at least give you the opportunity for you to talk to me too, for you to talk to each other. That is actually at the core of Web3, this community focus where people can come together and learn from each other and share tips and tools along the way. And by the way, I hope my audio is okay on TikTok right now. I can't check it, which is so frustrating, but I just got nervous that my headphones weren't working. So if you're watching on TikTok, can you just leave me a quick note and let me know if the audio is okay? So anyways, this idea that we could go into the metaverse and virtually hang out with each other, I think is amazing. If I had that option right now in this moment, if I owned a pair of the VR headset like the Oculus, I could go into a room and hang out with a bunch of strangers. And there are videos online right now of people doing that, and it actually looks really cool to me. It's not about me just sitting around and ignoring the real world all the time. It's about interaction in a way that might not be normally accessible. And again, very similar to live video or video in general. If you're watching this live, just imagine that instead of just staring at a screen, you had a headset on and it felt like we were in a room together. That's really neat to me. I would prefer that than just sitting there watching a video. I'd prefer to look around and see other things. There are a ton of maybe not a ton, but there are a number of conferences now that are happening in the metaverse. And that looks really neat. If you've ever been to an online event, a summit, a conference of any type, you know that it's like just doesn't feel the same as an in-person conference. At these metaverse conferences, people are walking around in their virtual world. They're going up to one another, having little conversations, just like you would at a real event. And there are a ton of benefits to that, actually. As much as that will never replicate the in-person experience, and I just realized, sorry, I have to change something on my screen over here. As much as the metaverse will never replicate the in-person experience, at least as far as we can predict in the moment, it's not really meant to replace it, in my opinion. Maybe some people think that it will, but if you think of the metaverse as just the in-between, as the in-between or a better version of a virtual event. I think there's a lot of promise. Something else that you'll see if you read the Ready Player One book, and they kind of touch upon this in the Ready Player One movie, is the educational opportunities with the metaverse, where people, I think in the book, they reference like a geography class. Like if you're in a classroom studying geography, it might feel boring. You're looking at a photo in a book or on your computer. But imagine if you were in the metaverse and your teacher could fly you to a different part of the world, and you feel like you're in Paris, you feel like you're in Japan, you feel like wherever you're studying, you could go back in time in history, and people in the metaverse could like create this whole world of replicating what it was like to be in ancient Greece. Like if I were studying that, I would much prefer that than just falling asleep in class because I was so bored. So that element of the metaverse really excites me. And I think if we can start to lean in and see it in more positive ways versus this scary, oh my gosh, we're doomed as as a species way, I think that it can actually make people lean into it and be more excited about it. Now, one huge element that has not quite happened with the metaverse yet is accessibility for everybody to join it. In this moment, there are some tools where you could join a metaverse or go into a metaverse like experience just using your camera, your phone or your computer. There are apps now that are popping up that kind of create that. A great example is if you have seen or heard of Pokemon Go. That's what that's called, right? Like it was the augmented reality where people would use the cameras on their phone and put it out in the street and they go collect things. Like that, I mean, augmented reality is certainly an element of the metaverse. So we have those tools already, and more people are going to embrace that. We're going to see more and more of that with Web3. Um, and the other element, as I mentioned, is that we could certainly uh, get a pair of Oculus glasses. And I don't even know, are there other brands right now that are similar competitive to that? Probably. I've heard that Apple is working on them, and personally I will hold out for that for as long as possible. But not everybody's going to have access to buy those things now or later. They're still kind of expensive. I think Oculus glasses, correct me if I'm wrong, are like at least $200, $300. You can rent them. Of course, you could borrow them. But for a lot of people, they're not something that you're going to run out and buy. And it might not be a great time to buy them because the technology is changing so much. It kind of reminds me of electric cars, where a lot of people are still hesitating to buy electric cars as much as they want them and see the value in them. But the technology is changing so rapidly that people are afraid if they buy them now, something better will come out later. Now, of course, with technology, that's always going to be the case. But, if your resources are stretched and it's not a necessity, I don't know how many people are going to get into the full version of the metaverse quite yet. But in the future, it's very possible that this technology, or likely, I should say, that the technology is going to become a much more less in cost, and also maybe even be free. Like it's kind of like if we look at the evolutions of cell phones. Remember when like the iPhone first came out, I think you had to pay out of pocket for it. Now there's all these deals that you could get from the cell phone companies. They have like monthly payment plans. Like there's so many ways that something that's really expensive like the iPhone are now accessible. But it's also been proven that the majority of people like that technology. They're used to it, they want it, and they're going to feel left out. I think we're going to see a lot of shifts like that with the metaverse. So I'll pause there for a second and go back to my notes, but see, does anyone have questions or comments? I feel like I'm teaching right now, but I just want to remind you, if you're watching live, that I really want to hear your thoughts on this. Like, does this apply? Does this make sense to you? Have you learned otherwise? And if you're looking into the metaverse, where are you looking? Like, what are you studying? What resources have you looked into? I'd love to learn from that too. So feel free to drop in the comment section and I'll read it out loud. And if you're watching the recording, same thing. You can use the comments or you can reach out to me and I can address it in another video. So assuming nobody else has anything they want to share, I'm going to go back over to my notes. And again, if you're on TikTok, it's the one place that I can't share my screen. So if you prefer to follow along and see my screen, I'm doing that on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, etc. Okay, so one thing that I think is kind of neat if you're into like the nerdy origins of this sort of thing is that the term metaverse comes from Neil Stephenson in this novel called Snow Crash that was written in 1992. And I haven't read it yet. I actually want to put that back in my reminder list to go check out because I'm curious what that looks like, similar to Ready Player One, and how like many years ago this was already being discussed and maybe seeming like just a fantasy, but that terminology is now catching on and applying. So I think that also shows how there's this whole evolution happening right now in terms of it could take a long time for some of this to evolve, whereas other elements of Web3 are going to happen super fast and rapidly. And also, Web3 is already happening in our lives, whether we notice it or not. And this is part of the reason that I'm really committed to doing these daily videos, is because I want to put it in front of people's face and say, like, this isn't something to be afraid of, but this also isn't something that we can deny, in my opinion. Certainly we don't have to participate in it at the moment, but going back to that example of the iPhone, for example, we see how much technology changed once that one device was introduced to us. Before that, some people had Blackberries, but we didn't have these touch phone devices and using them so commonplace. We weren't taking pictures in the way that we are now. We weren't doing live videos and all this other stuff. I mean, technology just kind of shifted so quickly because of that one thing that was introduced. And then, all these other competitors came in and we have seen the shifts. And I think that's exactly what's happening with Web3 right now. So let's all lean into it and better understand it and talk about it and see maybe if that makes us feel more confident. Also, I think this is interesting that there's no single universally accepted definition of the metaverse. Simply put, the metaverse is a vast network of 3D worlds and simulations rendered in real time for cooperation and participation. This is not a virtual reality experience or a virtual economy with avatars sticking out, but a way to maintain identity, objects, payments, history, and ownership continually, or ownership continuity, actually, I think is what they said. So that's really interesting, right? Like, this three-dimensional world, as I described, if you're using goggles or a device to go into this, it's that real-time cooperation and participation, as I mentioned, that really excites me and I think shows the positivity of this. And this specific article said this is not a virtual reality experience. I mean, I guess it is, but it's linking to another article, so I'm kind of curious what they mean by that. And also this idea of like avatars sticking out. I guess like right now, the metaverse is associated with all these like fake avatars. And again, my reference to Ready Player One is very much that. If you watch the movie, it's like all these people creating these avatars for themselves, and it is like a virtual reality experience there. But the metaverse is actually much different than that in some ways, and exactly that point of there's no single universally accepted definition. That to me is a crucial part of understanding Web3, is that it is evolving. It's not just one thing. And I think it's really important for us to broaden our opinions and our ideas around this, because it could be a bunch of different things at once. And keeping that in mind may make it actually feel more intriguing if you're feeling nervous about it. All right, what else do we have in this article? Any attempt to apply a rigid definition for what is and isn't metaverse is tricky, because it's more of an abstract concept that continues to evolve rather than a finite definition. The metaverse is the internet enhanced and upgraded to consistently deliver 3D content, spatially organized information and experiences, and real-time synchronous communication. Again, I think that's cool. That excites me. This is what makes me want to get a pair of the Oculus headphones to be, or not headset. Like, I feel like I'm missing out when I read things like that. I'm like, ooh, I want to go into the metaverse today. But like I said, I'm sure there's platforms that allow you to engage in it a little bit more with the two-dimensional or whatever devices that we have. So I'm trying not to have too much FOMO around the metaverse. But yeah, it makes me want to look into it. And I'm curious, have you ever used the Oculus headset or something similar? And it's still called that, right? I feel like because Facebook, or Meta as it's now called, bought Oculus. I'm not even up to date on like what things are called and all of that. I'm gonna actually look that up right now in real time. Let's see. I'm going to display this on my screen for those of you watching on platforms outside of TikTok. So yeah, oculus.com, you can go over there. They have all the VR headsets and equipment and all of that. And when you search for it on Google, one of the top hits says, "Is Oculus worth buying?" And this is an article from just a few months ago that says, now that Facebook has introduced its new Oculus Quest 2, that was the name I was looking for, virtual reality VR headset, and it improves upon its predecessor in almost every way. More importantly, however, it creates an all-in-one best VR system that is truly worth buying, even if you're a relatively casual user. Okay, so that leads me to see, like, how much is the Quest 2? I'm going to look this up in real time. And I'm also curious, is anyone watching, do you have an Oculus and what's that like? I used an Oculus maybe once, probably when it first came out. I think it was the Oculus, and this was about 3 years ago, and I played some game where I went out on like the top of a building or something. Like, I remember like which is a common thing when you see people using the Oculus, is like being up in some tall building and falling off. I don't know. It's kind of, there's got a lot of cliches, but I've also seen really cool commercials of people working out in a fitness class wearing the Oculus device, and I think that's neat. And I also really like the little handheld things. I don't know if they come with what are those even called? But they allow you to like interact with your hands more. It's so fascinating, and it does look really fun. So let's see. So there's two versions of the Oculus Quest 2. The 128 gigabyte is $299, so about what I said. And then you can also get upgrades, like they have different batteries. And let's see, do they come? Oh, they do come with those. They're called two touch controllers, those little devices that you hold on to. So for $299, you get the headset, charging cable, power adapter, batteries, and the controllers. I'm so tempted. But like something within me is saying like hold off, because it just seems like something fun to do, not something necessary. And if you want to upgrade and get the bigger storage for 256 gigabytes, that's $399. It's like buying an iPhone. But this is the thing, I'm fairly certain that Apple is working on their Oculus competitor. Let's see. I don't know if there's any predictions about when that comes up, but as of last week, Mac Rumor says Apple glasses, VR and AR are coming. And it says that Apple's been exploring virtual reality and technology for almost 20 years. This is also what fascinates me about Web3, is that so much has been happening behind the scenes. Like when Facebook made their announcement about changing their name to Meta, I was like, they have been planning this for so long. I imagine. I mean, you can say what you want about Facebook, and everybody has their different opinions about it, but they're still trendsetters, just like Apple. These companies have been looking into this for so long, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface in terms of our knowledge. And that's why I feel like it's so important for us to study it all the time. I get so much overwhelm when I start looking into Web3 stuff. So, my aim with these daily videos is to just break it down, take a deep breath, talk about it for like an hour, and then move on with my day. And also try not to have that FOMO, as I mentioned. But like, I feel like if we don't study this right now, we're going to miss out on just watching the technology evolve. And the fact that Apple's been working on virtual reality and augmented reality for almost 20 years, according to Mac rumors, is nuts. But it also makes sense when you look at like the origins of the word metaverse and that, you know, if you think about the book Ready Player One, which I forget what year that came out. The movie is 2018. The book, was it like 2015? Let's see. And the reason I'm looking this up is because the fact that Steven Spielberg was willing to do that movie and all these people that got involved with that movie about 4 years ago or five, however many years they started production on it, you know, that is an indication in itself that this is something really interesting, at least. But when you read Ready Player One, which again, I'm just going to keep bringing this up for you, get the book or listen to the audiobook. That was written in 2011. So over 10 years ago now. And when you read that book, it is so detailed. The amount of like thought and research that probably went into that, to me, is like, there's just a lot happening. So imagine what's happening now that, you know, is going to be announced in 5 years or whatever. So going back to this Mac Rumors article, it's really in depth. And I don't know if it has any indication about when it could come out, but like the fact, and I'm going to share my screen for those watching outside of TikTok, is this is just, there's so much in-depth information about what they could possibly be doing. And in summary, Apple is investigating multiple ways virtual and augmented reality could be implemented into future iOS devices or new hardware products. Apple's focus on AR/VR has ramped up over the past few years, and an augmented reality product could launch as soon as this year. I really hope it does. And if you see the image, the mock-up, I don't know where this came from, where the Mac rumors got this from, but it looks like it could be really cool and much more appealing to me. But I don't know, again, how long I want to wait for something like this. I'm sure, however, if you bought, or if I bought the Oculus Quest 2, there's probably a decent resale on it. Or maybe you can get just a used version of it. Let's see. That's something I'm probably going to research after I finish recording today is, can I get my hands on a used one or just borrow it? I think the one that I tried out years ago was from a rental company. So I guess that's probably worth looking into as well. I'm going to like go on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. Maybe Craigslist makes me a little nervous, but Facebook Marketplace might be a good place to try to get a used one, and maybe even a used one. Ooh, there's refurbished. When you type in Oculus Quest 2 on Google, a decent amount of money that I don't necessarily want to spend. I'm not that type of tech person right now where I just buy things to try them. But $199 is definitely more appealing than paying $299 for something I don't actually need. All right. So again, I'm going to pause for a second to see, do you have questions, comments, anything? I don't want to rush through all of this, but I also want to keep the momentum going here. Speaking of kind of like cool tech stuff, this is my hydrate bottle. Can you see it flashing? I love this thing so much. And this kind of feels like, I don't think it falls into the category of augmented reality, but it's how tech can help us so much as human beings. So the reason that it's flashing right now is that's a signal that I'm supposed to drink more water. And it syncs up with my Apple Watch and my iPhone. I don't know if it will work with my Mac computer. And I can keep track of how much water I drink every day, and it'll remind me to drink. So if I'm not paying attention and not thinking about water, I'll see this thing flashing. I'll get alerts on my phone and my watch. And then like you can track your progress all the time over time and see like, your streak of how much water you've had. And let me tell you, when I'm on a streak of drinking the minimum amount of water from my body every day, which you can set in the app, I actually feel a massive difference. And such a crazy thing how bad many of us are at staying hydrated. So technology can really help us in so many ways. All right. I'm going to go back to my Notion document, see if there's anything else. Well, I'm just going to go through it bullet point by bullet point because there's just a lot in here. Now, the metaverse, just as I mentioned earlier, has been here for some time and is just now receiving mainstream attention as it moves into new, more immersive platforms like VR and AR. So that's the other thing too, is keeping in mind that it's not just like some new thing. It's not something that Facebook is like doing alone. Like, it has been developing for a long time. And so maybe we can put a little bit more trust into these things, or know that we could become more educated and look for opportunities to contribute to it, to get involved, to develop our own tech. I mean, the other cool thing that I've been seeing a lot of in the conversation around Web3 is how many job opportunities there are. And this is something that I want to emphasize so much for you. If you are a creative person, if you are into technology, if you are interested in working from home and want to lean into developments online, if you can learn a lot about Web3 and something like the metaverse, you will be one of relatively few people for a while, because it's going to really good income for yourself. Because when there's scarcity of knowledge, when there's scarcity more, where there may be more, all of this kind of becomes so commonplace. And this is part of the reason, honestly, that I'm learning it and committed to it, is that I can tell you right now with full confidence that the more I develop and the quicker I develop my knowledge and speaking skills around Web3, that there will be so many opportunities. And some examples for someone like me is just speaking, right? I could be hired to speak at events about it and to train people. I could be quoted in press articles, right, and get more traffic over to the rest of the work that I'm doing. I can better talk about things like what I'm doing with Rally, and better understand how to help people with all of this. If you don't know this about me, I work as a coach and consultant in the marketing world. And because Web3 is becoming bigger and bigger, people are going to need to understand it for their marketing uses. And so the sooner I can understand all of that, the more I can help people. And that's part of my motive for being so committed to doing these videos every day, but bringing you along the journey too. I said this, I think, in the first day of this series, is that I don't want to be someone who gets too far advanced in Web3 and doesn't know how to talk about it from a down to earth level standpoint, right? Like, the downside to when we learn a lot is that we forget what it was like when we were first starting to learn. We lose that beginner's mind, as they say, and the beginner's mind is so crucial. There are always going to be people who are just starting out with something like this. I used to work for Apple, and that was one of the best skills that I learned working at the Apple store, is how to teach people things. Because I would generally find myself teaching somebody who was a lot older than me, and I noticed the generational differences, and also just personality wise, skill set wise. I would tend to know and feel more comfortable with technology. And one thing that really stuck in my mind from the Apple store was how some people use mice. And I don't remember if it was somebody I was training or one of my colleagues at the Apple store, but some people didn't even know how to use a mouse. Like, especially, the older clients, they would come in and we would say, okay, now move the mouse to this side of the screen. And they would pick it up off the table and move it on the table, versus they didn't know that you could move your finger around the little ball, or depending on which, this is the magic mouse, right, you can move your finger on here. They didn't know that you could just move it a little bit up or down, right? And that was a pivotal thing for me as a trainer, because I realized that everybody just learns differently, knows different things, and also hears words differently, right? So I've made the metaphor, is that the right term, the relation to learning a language, and how at the very beginning it feels daunting, it feels confusing, it feels overwhelming and tough. Like your learning process with a language is just like all of this. And so for me personally to stay in this beginner's mindset, I think is going to be my greatest asset, versus a lot of people talking about Web3 right now tend to be so far advanced, it goes over my head when I'm trying to learn. And I'm intimidated by them. I don't want to learn from somebody who's like not talking to me as a beginner. Like, so that's my big aim and commitment here. I may come to the point where I can't, I have to like really be intentional about the way that I talk. Because also the more advanced we get, we just forget what people don't know. So keep that in mind for yourself too when you're talking about Web3 to your friends, or if you're, consulting or doing work in this business too. Like really go back and make sure that the people that you're talking to understand what you're saying, and see if you can approach it from a way that like helps get everybody on the same page. Okay, I have a ton of notes in Notion, and I generally go off on all these tangents. But let me see if there's anything else worth sharing from the beginner's mind standpoint. So there's a lot of talk around the metaverse and the digital experience of it, the virtual experience of it, and how that's combining various aspects of social media, online games, augmented reality, AR, virtual reality, VR, and cryptocurrency. And I love this term. It is embodied in which you are, wait, hold on a second. The embodied internet in which you are in the experience, not just gazing at it. That's what I said at the very beginning, or a while ago now in this video, is I just think it's cool to be in something versus just looking at it, right? It's actually another great example is, have you ever seen a picture of a place that you've never been before, and you're trying to imagine what it's like, but you don't know what it sounds like, you don't know what it smells like or feels like, and it's a photo or even a video, right? Like you're coming into it with these ideas about what's just based on that image or video. It's so different than when you're actually there in that place, and how your senses are engaged in so many different ways. It also reminds me of movie theaters or like theme parks that have like a more immersive experience where they like 3D or IMAX or whatever, or those chairs, I forget what they're called, where they have like the speakers built in behind you so that like the sound is different. Or I remember, I think at, was it Universal, or Disneyland, Disney World, where like they would spray water on you during different parts of the video or watching it. I loved that stuff. I've always thought it was cool. Or the chairs that like move around in the same motions as the video that you're watching. Like that's cool. And then you put on these headsets, and every time you turn your head, you're seeing something different. I just think that's amazing. Again, I'm just right now convincing myself to get the Oculus. That's really what's happening here. How about you? Like, are you starting to consider buying an Oculus if you don't already have one? Something else from my Notion document here is the metaverse is an alternate universe where individuals can model their image to whatever they want to be and perform real life tasks such as buying things, gaming with friends, and other activities. I think that's really cool too. And this ties into the ability for people to show up in life in a way that they might not feel able to or comfortable doing in the real world, right? A perfect example, and actually this is a part of Ready Player One as well, is people creating an avatar that looks how they want to actually look. And we actually already do this in a lot of ways right now, especially on platforms like TikTok, where I'm broadcasting live. is you can use filters. You can use augmented reality things. You can make it look like you're wearing makeup or a hat. Or right now, there's a trend on TikTok where women are using augmented reality to see what they would look like as a guy. And obviously, people are extremely amused by that because it allows them to envision themselves as different than they are. And of course, we do this in regular life when a woman or anybody in general puts on makeup or face paint, does their hair, wears their clothes. You see tons of videos of people using face paint to completely transform themselves. There are videos of people that use makeup that completely contour their face or different tools, and they look vastly different. And we've actually put a negative label on this in a lot of ways. That term catfish gets used so much, and people feeling misled or cheated because somebody doesn't look like their photo or their video, and when they see them in real life they're disappointed. And I can understand that, but what if we looked at it through the lens of that's what that person really wants to look like, or maybe that's what they feel like they look like on the inside and they're trying to express that on the outside? That there's a huge opportunity in the metaverse for that. And I think that's really exciting because now you can go and interact with somebody and perceive them to be in the way that they want you to perceive them without them having to spend all this time in real life creating it. They can make an avatar one time and immediately go into the world and be that embodiment. They could be a completely different creature, right? So I'm excited about that too, how our relationships with people may feel more in alignment with how we want them to be. All right, let's see. I could go on and on about this, so I'm going to try to go through my Notion document a little faster to wrap up this conversation today. While many people think of the metaverse as a version of the dystopian book and movie Ready Player One, as I've mentioned a few times, much of the metaverse will have a much more utilitarian value. In the end, we'll always be connected to the metaverse by expanding our senses of sight, hearing, and touch, and integrating digital elements with a digital world. Multiple meta universes in our world are likely to emerge. The metaverse isn't just AR, augmented reality slash VR, virtual reality, and cartoon avatars. It can be any form of online engagement, from a Zoom call to commenting on your favorite creator's social posts, plus anything that gives you presence, engagement, and identity in a digital space. And again, I think we're really already seeing that. TikTok is a phenomenal example. So is Snapchat. Both of those platforms allow people to create these different expressions of themselves. And even on Zoom, as that quote pointed out, if you go on Zoom right now, you can go into your settings and change your background. I do it all the time. Because sometimes I don't like the way my background looks, right? You can go into Zoom and add makeup on your face. Like you can put lipstick on and various makeup. You can also blur your face a little so you can change how you look on camera in Zoom, on a meeting. And you can do it in such subtle ways that people will never know that you've changed that about you. Is that catfishing? Is that you saving time because you don't feel like doing your makeup or changing your background? Is it that you don't like the way your background looks? And instead of completely redecorating, you can just click a button and show the world that you're in a different place. And it also doesn't have to be a catfish because you can make fun of yourself for it, or just point it out, like say, hey, this isn't really where I'm at right now, but this is what I feel more comfortable doing. Like, again, I love that. I think that that's really neat, especially when we can be honest and when that becomes more and more commonplace. And I think this next point in my notes brings that up too, is that the metaverse goes beyond VR and AR technology itself and has the potential to be the ultimate equalizer of the first half of the 21st century by creating an actual global plaza for people to be included, integrating their physical and digital existence into an authentic hybrid experience. That's one of my favorite quotes about the metaverse. Now, in my document too, I have like a screenshot, and it was this in reaction to Facebook being Meta, that says, if we look at Instagram or social media, we've scrolled forever, but we're going to move into scrolling around space, a kind of three-dimensional space. So that's one definition. The other is the virtual worlds that you can explore as an avatar. And some people define the metaverse as moving from scrolling to strolling. So right now, especially on platforms like TikTok, actually most platforms, Instagram, Facebook, we do a lot of swiping. We're going like from the vertical viewpoint of scrolling through and seeing what there is to offer. In the metaverse, you can put on your headset and hold on to your little controllers and actually like walk through that world, which might be a little bit more fun and engaging for your brain in a unique way. The metaverse should encourage people to interact and riff through AR, creating new connections and expanding on thousands of years of human experience. AR and VR worlds are brought up earlier, which, there are certain data issues. So as much as I obviously have a very positive view of the metaverse and what it can be, there are concerns around data. And absolutely, what we need to keep in mind is that a platform like Facebook changing their name to Meta and getting really into that world and buying the Oculus devices, they're motivated financially. We live in a capitalist system right now. Now, hopefully, with the shifts that we may see through Web3, the power structure could change. We need to do that. We need to become more knowledgeable about that in order to shift things, in order to influence things. We can't just sit back and watch if we want to have a say. So let me remind you to be mindful as you explore the metaverse and be mindful as you look into the Web3 to expand your knowledge, as I keep saying, to come to check in with me and other people that you know that are looking into this. Do not sit back and be ignorant if you are afraid. If you want to play a role in all of this, please educate yourself. Understand the implications of it. Understand the concerns. Understand the benefits. Because that's where I think we really have the greatest opportunity to shift everything. And let me check on one last thing. I think I'm going to wrap up now. One article that I read said that you could argue that the metaverse is just a product of late-stage capitalism. So food for thought there. I hear that come up a lot in terms of Web3, is that certainly the capitalistic issues are there. And this is why I feel like we need to stay educated. We need to talk about this. We need to talk about it with other people that don't understand it, and talk about it with people who understand it more than us, and really consider what our values are and what's important to us. In all of my work on social media, I've noticed how I and other people have maybe had our blinders on too much. Maybe we've been so into the system that we don't even realize how much it controls us. Maybe we lose sight of our value or our humanity in elements of this. And it's we can't really blame ourselves for that because the systems are really strong. I think there are a lot of benefits to platforms like Facebook, but if you look into the history of Facebook and the concerns, if you look into the data around the mental health issues, platforms like Facebook and Instagram, even TikTok, may not be great for our mental health, may not be great for our connections. And I think that we need to make sure that we're addressing that and paying a lot of attention to that. And speaking of which, Joseph Jaffe just joined in the broadcast, who said, interesting concept. And by the way, Joseph, can you help me understand? I think, do you use Ecamm Live as well? Whenever I display my comments, they get cut off, and I haven't been able to figure that out. Maybe you can message me and tell me, how do I change those settings if you use Ecamm Live? Anyways, he said, very interesting concept of late-stage capitalism, kind of like post-marketing or even postmodern marketing. Yeah, I think marketing is going to go through some huge shifts, and hopefully for the better, right? But we also have to redefine our reasons for marketing, our understanding of marketing, the roots of what's going on there, and maybe view marketing completely different. Because I don't think that capitalism is all in all, like, I'm not an anti-capitalist, I don't think, but I agree with a lot of the anti-capitalist points out there. So I'm still figuring a lot of that out. But I do think it's important that we make money and that people share their goods and services, and just tie in the ethical side of it. Like, maybe it's the conscious capitalism, right? We were talking about recently, Joseph, just being very conscious about how we're making money and how we're marketing it to other people, and being mindful. That's what I hope to see. And especially with community being a big buzzword in Web3, really focus on the community versus, I think it was either yesterday or the day before, I was talking about like the pyramid. You know, there's a reason why a lot of people are resentful of pyramid schemes, right? Where the person at the top is getting all the benefits, making all the money, and using the people throughout the rest of the pyramid to their advantage, but not considering what those people need and what those people are getting. And I'm a big advocate for that. I want to see the circular side of things, and the word community to me is rooted in the circle. So if everybody has, gives equal value and receives it back to them, that's the ideal. Is that easy? No. But this is a complicated subject that I am learning about more and more, and I'm glad that you brought it up. Joseph, I don't think it's a restream issue. He's bringing up the eCam issue that I'm having. It seems to only be when somebody writes a long sentence on eCam, it like cuts off the beginning and the end of the text. But when you write something short like you just did, it looks great. So maybe I just need to contact eCam Live. I love their software. That's what I use. And as he also mentioned, I use Restream to broadcast to a bunch of different platforms. Thank you wherever you're watching from. I'm going to wrap up now. If you're watching the recording, thanks for watching for this. I know it broke up into at least 2 parts today because I got the message that's been happening. So thanks for bearing through me as I figure out all the tech to make this possible to broadcast on 6 platforms simultaneously. I'll be back again tomorrow around the same time, same place. Each day I'm broadcasting between 2:30 to 3 p.m. as a start time, Pacific time, and going for about an hour. It's now a little after 4 p.m. Pacific time, so I'm going to wrap up. And if you want to catch the recording, either video or audio, let me share again the website. WhitneyLauritsen.com/web3 leads you to the page of my website that I made, which has all of the things in one place. Let me pull that up on my screen too. I was not fully prepared for this. And Joseph, I actually have mentioned you and your broadcast, if you're still there. I mentioned you recently because you have such a great YouTube channel. So for those of you who haven't checked him out yet, go check out Joseph Jaffe's Not Famous channel on YouTube. I do a weekly wellness focus in there too, and it's mentioned in one of these videos. If you want to go check out the previous videos, they're all here. Some with tech issues, some not. And then the audio only versions are on WhitneyLauritsen.com/web3. I've currently uploaded day 1 and day 2. I'm skipping day 3 because that's where I had all the tech issues, but day 4, which was yesterday, and day 5, which is today, will be up here shortly, and you can just listen to me in your ear without sitting there and watching. And lastly, I've been working on the Discord community, so if you own just one Rally, well coin on Rally, you will get access to my Discord once that's all fully set up. So go check that out. You can get it right now for as low as under 13 cents, which is quite a steal. But hopefully the more people that sign up for Rally, the value will go up. So we're in this together. That's a whole nother topic about the economic benefits of all this that I'll get into in a future stream. So I'm wrapping up for today. Thanks again for watching. If you have any questions in between my broadcast or something that is coming up for you during the recording, or as you're thinking about Web3, send me a message, write me a comment, send me an email. I'm here. I will be here, as I mentioned, every day for the indefinite future, just to talk about Web3 and keep it down to earth to help you and myself really become more aware of what's going on in the space and for our future. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, bye.